welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. You know, as they often say, you're a guy that I'd rather know you and not need you than to need you and not know you.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled that somebody actually reads my website. So
there you go. That's where I got your intro there. Yeah. Well, you know, I liked it though, Jeremy. It's to the point. As many of our partakers know, I was incarcerated in the Collin County Detention Center for having 2 marijuana cigarettes. And I got to tell you, it was a frightening experience. And not only frightening, it was costly. And finding proper representation is certainly the smartest thing anybody can do when they've gotten in trouble, is to keep their mouth shut and call their lawyer, right?
That's a great start.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself here. You're not a native Texan, but you're living here now.
That's right. We moved to Texas when I was 11, which means I've lived in Texas longer than I think most people in Collin County. My wife is also a transplant. So yeah, we're like most folks that you're going to be in line with at Kroger here.
Well, there you go. Where did you go to law school?
I went to SMU.
Oh, yeah. My wife's an SMU alumni.
There you go. Pony up. Yeah.
Pony up.
Love it. Yeah. So I went to SMU for law school and was a prosecutor in McKinney for a little bit. And that's where I've defended people for a big part of being a lawyer. Right.
How long were you with the DA's office?
Several years. I was a misdemeanor chief prosecutor, which is it's a big little deal. I don't know, but we prosecuted one of the main type of cases that we prosecuted was marijuana cases and other types of drug cases. But a big part of being a lawyer, if you know a lot of us, is name dropping and talking about how long you've practiced, how many push-ups you can do, these types of things. So I've been practicing about 20 years now.
Right. And defending people from a variety of things, or do you specialize in one specific type of defense?
Well, that's a great question. Defend things across the board, mostly state court. Drug type of charges are, the good news is that there's a lot less marijuana type prosecutions that we see these days. Most of the drug cases that we are seeing are going to be some type of edible or compound or something that's brought in from out of state. That's what kind of piques law enforcement ears more so than anything these days. But we do things across the board. A lot of intoxication type cases, which obviously have heavy drug issues.
Yeah, you know, folks, we're all familiar with the DWI and the DUI that occurs if you're pulled over and you've been drinking and you've got too much alcohol in your blood, right? And so this is an issue now with cannabis.
That's right.
Because they can't really test and know. Like with alcohol, they can kind of get a level. They don't do that with that. How do they do that?
Okay, so of all of the substances that are out there, the only one that under Texas law has a per se amount of being illegal is alcohol, and that's 0.08. The rest of the substances, for whatever reason, there's just not that per se level, and that could be because your body builds up a tolerance to it. Or the science just isn't there. All the field sobriety testing that is done, and it's an organization called NHTSA, which is run out of College Station, Texas A&M, NSHTSA. All of their tests are designed to show intoxication via alcohol. It takes a special drug recognition expert to try to diagnose the intoxication by some type of drug or cannabis or opiate or something like that. And just to be candid with you, it's a bit of a junk science. So the blood is always kind of what's going to tell that tale. And even then, it's really hard.
Yeah, and because the THC compound from marijuana stays in someone's body a lot longer, you could legally go and ingest something in California, Colorado, Nevada, the 24 states that recreationally cannabis is legal. You could do that, come back home, not be under any psychotropic feeling from the drug. It could be several days, if even weeks, but it's still in your system. And law enforcement has to make a determination from.
That's right. And there's not a lot of law enforcement that's out there that has that type of training for it. You know, what they do is they kind of they'll just sort of eyeball it, and they'll say, well, there's just something wrong with you, and we don't think this is a medical thing, and you don't seem drunk to me, so we're just going to take you in. And it's a bit of a kangaroo process, which is a little bit scary because that sort of gives law enforcement permission to just kind of mess with people they don't like. And we hate that as Americans.
Yeah, infringing upon people's rights. I mean, I think that all of us should be cognizant of, we don't want people stoned or drunk or under Adderall or any kind of substance out driving a motor vehicle, okay? But we need to have some common ground of knowing when somebody's impaired and not just in driving, but in the workplace also. As a criminal defense attorney, I'm sure that these things are happening all the time where people say, well, I brought this back from Colorado, I didn't realize, or I legally bought this. These products here have THC in them. They're going to make you show positive on a drug test, yet there's hundreds of stores here in Texas that sell Bucka Buzz gummies, and they're fixing to start selling Buzz Me Up along with a plethora of other brands. So that's a quagmire for law enforcement and an opportunity for guys like you to help educate people.
There's a lot of confusion over the topic, and not the least of which is because we have some of the issues in Texas with Delta 8, Delta 9, and some of the cases that are kind of working their way through the courts. So the police are really confused about it, and sometimes that makes them sort of reluctant to make an arrest, properly so, in a lot of occasions. But yeah, folks don't know exactly where those lines are, and hopefully within the next 5 years, 10 years, as these issues tend to settle themselves, we'll have clear lines for everybody, for law enforcement and for the consumer, to know what's kosher, what's not kosher, what's legal, what's not legal, above and beyond just the simple medical part of it, right?
Sure.
What's this going to do to me?
Yeah, and now that you've got drinks, you've got edibles, the onset of all these different things, someone could innocently do something and then later on have some issues and problems with this. What do you share, Jeremy, with people that are partaking of this safe practices on your website? Do you have information for people or anything like that to help them understand how not to need your services? I know that sounds bad, but
so the preventative side, so unfortunately we're on the reaction side of it,
right?
So typically the inquiries we would get would be like, hey, they didn't understand that this is what was really going on here. But again, it tends to turn on law enforcement that if you're, and you kind of talked about it with the last guest that I saw, that when you look like a librarian and you're driving down the street and you are and you're consuming lawfully your products, you're not going to get a hard time. You're going to get a hard time if you look like we do, kind of shredded and sweet, and you're going to get a hard time based on that type of a profile. So that unfortunately is kind of what we see on the back end. And so it's just sort of the same thing we've always dealt with in America, which is the profiling. We're just seeing a new battleground for it.
When speaking of battlegrounds here, folks, we're going to have to take a quick break, and we'll bring back about this battleground question I have for Jeremy. Thanks for staying with us, partakers. Battleground, that's what we were fixing to talk about. We've got one going on here in Texas.
That's right.
Cities are trying to decriminalize small possession of marijuana, but our Attorney General Ken Paxton is saying, no, you can't do that. I'm going to put you back in jail with J-Man for the 2 joints in Collins County. Tell us about that.
So they do that at their own peril. I'll tell you right now, from the best single form of feedback that we get in the criminal justice system are what the juries tell us. When the DA's office, when they want to prosecute something, when they want to be aggressive about it, they take it to a jury. And if a jury pours them out really quickly and says, don't do this anymore, that's your voters telling you not to do that. So the state can do it as much as they want, and maybe that's convenient politics. Maybe that works in some of the rural counties. I don't know that you're going to see a lot of prosecutions in the Metroplex over cannabis and over marijuana. I don't think that the jurors are there. The cases that I've tried recently that involve these things, the jurors are unequivocally telling the prosecutors, we're done with this. Yeah. And hopefully they get the message. So even if Austin tells them, well, you've got to go do this, if you're defending these cases, that's fine. We'll just take it to a jury.
Take it to a jury. And it sounds like the winds have changed. In the past, a prosecutor might have wanted a jury trial to reprimand somebody for this drug use. And now he just wants it to be the judge because he knows the jury, 70% of them are in favor of legal marijuana, especially for small possessions. Now, we're not talking about cartels moving big truckloads. We want law enforcement to take care of that. And we want law enforcement to take care of the bad actors that are bringing products that don't have certificates of analysis and hard chemicals and things like that. And they've not followed good manufacturing practices because there's a lot of those things out there. In your world, a lot less people are getting popped for simple possession, I guess.
Absolutely. But what you do see is you see that when a police officer is doing a search, a lot of times the marijuana or the odor of the marijuana is going to be kind of the can opener. That's going to be what the police officers point to get into the car.
Sure.
And that's a battleground too because of the Farm Act from a few years ago defining hemp as 0.03% dry weight.
Right.
Meaning that a police officer really can't distinguish lawful hemp from unlawful marijuana. So, but that's what you see. That's kind of talking about the new battleground. That's a really cutting edge issue right now in the Texas courts.
Yeah, Jeremy, and not trying to get a legal ruling on this. If somebody legally bought these Buck-a-Buzz gummies that have Delta 9 THC in there that will get them high, make them test positive on a drug test, and they got their squirrel hunting shotgun in there, could they get in trouble?
So if the product that they're buying is legal and they have a weapon, they can still get in trouble because, pardon my, is this PG-13?
No, hell no. We can say whatever we want,
Look, I have a lot of friends
when they got to call you means you're fucked.
I've got a lot of friends in law enforcement, and they are wonderful people.
Yeah.
But if you are in the woods and Deputy Dipshit pulls you over, good luck explaining to him
that this is legal,
the compounds, and that's legal, and all those things. So you may beat the rat, but you're not going to beat the ride necessarily.
I understand what that means is you're going to pay some fees. You're going to have to pay counselor here. You're going to dismiss it once he does his magic, but you're still going to go through a lot of crap. And so that would be, there's so many stores now that are selling pre-rolled joints. I mean, it's THCA, a convenience store by my house down in Red Oak. I got a big jar full of them, right? $5 a piece or something. Officer sees that looks like that's marijuana to him. And then there's a weapon, whether it's a pistol for your personal protection or your hunting rifle, or heaven forbid you got an assault. You don't need to be riding around with an assault rifle, first of all. But so yeah, there's a whole lot. You got to pay attention, folks. Use common sense, which more and more of us are not having much of that anymore, it seems. But
always common sense. It never hurts to be polite, to be respectful to law enforcement. You got your day in court, right?
Yeah.
The standard for arrest is probable cause. Probably he thinks there's an offense. You've seen it in the movies all the time that somebody gets horsey with the police officer. He says, "Tell it to the judge." Well, that's where we can get horsey about these things, and that's where we can kind of start to stand up and assert our rights.
Well, I got in trouble from my mama a while back because I made a comment. I said it was a 2-joint drive to where I was going, and she says, "You smoking that pot when you're driving down the road?" And I said, "All right, I'll stop doing that, Mom. I'll make somebody else drive the car for me, and I smoke it in the back seat." She just looked at me.
There you go. There you go.
Well, how would somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to, if they needed your services, or their son, their daughter, their friend, one of our other guests said, "Hey, I might need you for something." How do they get a hold of you?
Our website is texasdefensefirm.com.
Okay, now look at that camera right there. Look down the barrel of the gun there.
Okay, down the barrel of it.
Yep.
All right. www.texas, spelled out, defensefirm.com.
How about that, folks? Counselor, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for sharing your remarkable journey and your unique insight with our partakers that need to make sure and be cautious when you're out there and don't get yourself in trouble, okay? And thank you, folks, for watching us each week and growing our tribe.